Hey guys, Bruce D Anime here. Hope you're doing well. I am, because we're talking about a series that's taken the world by storm and one that I'm going to be talking about with my general impressions, but with a different perspective, guys. I'm talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. And before I go any further, guys, if you like Jujutsu Kaisen, if you like people talking about it, you want more YouTube content for it, like this video, subscribe, let me know you do enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen content. I'm doing a general impressions video, a kind of where we're at, catching up with the story, but I actually started Jujutsu Kaisen years ago. It had been up to around chapter 50, I believe, 55. And that was after Super iPad Wolf did his first Shonen Jump video, The Current State, where he talked about the series. And I hopped into it, and I did like it. But I think I burned myself out reading it, because I blitzed through the whole thing, everything that was out. And it was just after the Kyoto arc, I think, that I just dropped. Not because I had a bad time with it or anything, but like I any number of reasons I could have been reading that day and found a new series or something of that nature. So I'm coming at this video with a different perspective than just watching the anime or been reading the manga the whole time. I just recently caught up with it after starting about chapter 55. I started on the chapter where Fujiguro went to the bridge, right, when he found out about his sister. And that's about where I left off, so I picked up there, and I'm really happy I picked the series back up, because from that sort of moment onwards, the series doesn't flip, but that's where the train starts picking up speed. It goes from something you'd normally expect to, like, it jumps up another level, guys. I sound unprofessional, I wish I could provide a better kind of simile for it, an analogy or anything, but it's just really when the train starts picking up, the story starts picking up. The characters started growing and growing more, developing more, and we start seeing the emotional weight of some of these battles really picking up. And even in that under the bridge, we see Fushiguro in a flashback where he's training with Gojo, and he is like told that you need to stop this whole sacrificing yourself, this whole like dying for others thing. And because Gojo looks at him, he's like, sorcerers die alone. And that, from that moment on, I knew I needed to catch up, because I've heard about the Shibuya Arc, that I was like, oh, Shibuya, it's different, and we'll get there, it does. But it's that moment when he just throws caution to the wind to win that fight in the cave with his domain expansion, his incomplete techniques, right? We see him use techniques that aren't fully developed, in which he might not work. And that's very unlike his character up to that point. So that's what I mean, where I'm glad I picked up at that moment, because that's when the series starts throwing curveballs at you, slight ones, and then bigger ones later, but that's when it starts changing things. So, speaking of the characters, they really grew on me starting from this chapter 55, right? That's my perspective coming from this. I used to not really like many of the characters. I hate to say that I didn't care about them, but I was like, okay, this is shonen flavor. All right, I get it. I get what this manga's about. I get where it's going. But then it sort of flips its script again. I'm going to keep using that phrase. I apologize, guys. I'm going to keep using that phrase to say that, again, Fujishiro, he throws caution into the wind. And we see him start to open up more and express more emotion. I was like, okay, all right, like, I liked this guy before, I kind of like the black hair, like, cool-looking guy. And from then on, it goes, okay, Nobara? I didn't care for Nobara at all at the beginning. I was like, who's this weak character? Is she going to be need rescuing? Is this what's going to happen? But no, like, she really grew on me through these chapters. The current state of the manga right now, I'm pretty worried, not going to lie to you. Gojo, I was like, okay, cool sensei guy. Then the flashback arc hit. Okay, I suddenly get what's going on here. It's things like that where these characters really grow on you, and because of that, and I'm going to transition to my next point here. The fights are cool, but I can honestly, I couldn't tell you. I'm not a power scaler. I'm not somebody who does battles, because I don't really care, because really Gojo it seems like, right, the way he's written, he could take on anybody. So with that frame of reference, and we'll get to the Shibuya arc, we'll get there. With that frame of mind of reference, then it becomes, the fights come down to emotional weight more than anything. And I know it's shonen, that's the point. But some series are really good at the fighting, and I don't much care for the emotional weight sometimes. Bleach. Or what Bleach, but let's be honest. Naruto sometimes has fights where I'm just, that's cool. I'm just kind of seeing what abilities you have. The weight isn't there. Sometimes it is. I'm not gonna say all fights are bad, but sometimes it hits those points. But with Jujutsu Kaisen, I want to know the emotional weight's always there. You're always aware of it, but it's not like ham-fisted. So I think that's one of its biggest strengths right now, and why it's kind of been taking a lot of hits by storm. Because let's take the biggest moment of one of the biggest moments of the series in the anime, right? Itadori's friend is killed, right? And they laugh at him, and from that moment onwards, that's fueling the fight. You're wanting to see that resolution. You're not. At least I'm not watching it to know what Itadori's power is, what his power level is, what feats he has. I don't care about that. I don't care about it's cool that Fujisiro has spoilers, guys, if it wasn't already obvious, that elite level summon that he had, that Sukuna fought in the latest arc. Like, that's cool, but I want to know if he makes it. I want to know what he thinks is going to happen and how he thinks he needs to get stronger if he makes it through the arc, let's be honest. And it's things like that. It's that weight. It's Nobara. Like, I love her character because when she's fighting against the brothers, let's take that example, it's not like, I know how her abilities work, but we see this side of her where she's like, okay, I know pain, let's see what happens, let's go toe to toe. And you don't expect that. I did not expect that coming from the character that I knew about years ago when I started this manga. So I'm really just, these characters just grew on me, and I'm really wanting to see where they go. And that says a lot for a manga that originally I thought, okay, it has the cool sensei and the 3, the Team 7 comparison, let's be honest. And I think that's where it's separated itself, where it's gone with its 4 members there. Also, it's addition to the trend we've seen of the mangas that center around maybe an OP character. And we saw that at first. He's certainly not the first, but it started with One Punch Man and Saitama. Now that's a bit of a gag manga. It's has its stylings and its fights, but it's mainly presented as a gag manga. And now we have things like, and excuse me if I'm skipping over the other characters, guys, but I also think recently I'm reading Solo Leveling. I'm covering that, and that's centered around the idea of a character being overpowered. But that it's not bad. In fact, it's really good. It doesn't lose its weight. It doesn't lose its tone or anything because of how powerful he is. It always manages to keep things in check. And with Gojo in this manga and anime, he's the same way. You'd think, oh, that'd be kind of boring. Can't he just solo the verse? Probably. But you still care about the characters because of their emotional weight in the story besides Gojo. And yes, of course, most recent arc, spoilers ahead if you haven't already clicked off the video, because of it, he gets trapped. So now we're left with, well, what happens? You don't have your ace up the sleeve, you don't have your trump card. And even when you did, there was no guarantee these characters made it out. So he's not Superman, he can't teleport, at least we know. He can't just come and save everybody all the time. So even with his OP powers, it's still written so extremely well, and I think that's why, one, he's so popular besides the character design, which is awesome, but also it's another notch or another evolution of the OP character design that succeeds in holding weight and holding tone. And I really respect the manga for that, and it really keeps me around because, like I said, that chapter 55 for all of you that are caught up with the manga, it goes into his backstory and his days as a student, what happened, and even then you're still like, well, he can pull this off, like not really all that hard, but we see him grow and come to understand his powers, and the people around him, that's, when I say these characters, the people around him are grossly affected by his OPness. Wow. Overpoweredness. They're grossly affected by that, because where does that leave them as sorcerers? Because he can take care of everything. They state, why not just leave it to Gojo? He can do every mission. What is your purpose at that point? And that starts to lead the main antagonist, Geto, kind of down his path. That thought. Not entirely, but that thought is sort of the progenitor of it. So when we talk about OP characters done right, this man might need to top the list. I love Saitama. He's a gag guy, but I love the shonen. Love Sung Jin Woo, the man, but Gojo might have to shoot to the top on this one. And when I say strong characters, let's talk about these villains, these antagonists. I'm talking Mahito, I'm talking Geto, I'm even talking about freaking Sukuna, Jogo. I hate to throw Sukuna in there like he's an underthought, oversight, but this series with the villains are so good because you're always aware of what they're doing and why they're doing it, what their feelings are. And it reminds me of a series, if you have it's a fantasy series called The Wheel of Time. It's considered the greatest fantasy series ever written. And that's saying something with Lord of the Rings as a series that currently exists in our world, right? And while it has a big bad villain, Sukuna in this case, it's strong but all his underlings have motivations. They have reasons and thoughts and feelings on why they're doing stuff. So you're invested even though the story ends and centers around almost a big bad. Like, Sukuna's the big bad, but these other underling villains, Geto, Jogo, Mahito, all these guys, Geto, like, these people, you hate them, but you understand them. And that's when a villain really jumps from being one note to a villain, an antagonist, someone you want to see defeated. That is when heat is built. Build that heat for these villains. Build that weight for these villains. And that's why people want to see these beatdowns, and they want to see our main characters succeed. That's why you care. Because it's not just, okay, yeah, the main characters are underdogs. Alright, they get a power-up. Yeah, alright, they defeat them, hooray. No. While you understand why the villains do what they do, even if you disagree with it, it's bad, that little bit of understanding leads to a payoff bigger than your typical shonen resolution, right? And I say these villains, people, these villains are a super highlight of this series, and I could recommend the series alone on them, even that. Just these villains, I could recommend this series alone. Also, if I could just say, Toji Fushiguro? Like, Toji Fushiguro. This man comes up with no powers, pulls up on the high school, on Gojo, and says, "Hi, how are you?" Guys, I've never been so invested in a character. Not invested, but I've never been so pumped to see a character on panel. When this guy was on panel, every time I was like, I want to know what he's doing. What is he thinking? What's he doing? When is he going to show up next? I was turning the page, flipping the page, waiting for this man to show up again. And, man, I guess I gotta go to my next point, but I just told you, the Shibuya Arc, alright? First of all, his appearance and his ending in that, just showing up again, and then his moment with his son, man, alright. So the Shibuya Arc, right? You probably heard a lot about it. You probably heard the community talking about it. It has changed everything, and it can't be understated how much it's elevated this manga from the latest hit to something that has staying power long term. Not just within Shonen Jump as a magazine, but anime rotations, manga lists, people's perception of what it means to write a manga. So we start the arc off. There's some mini fights, Gojo's doing his thing. And he's sealed at the beginning of this arc. I say the beginning, guys, bear with me, but it starts off with his sealing, and even the sealing, since he's so overpowered, author doesn't forget to remind us, it looks like he can escape on his own, but he's kind of just chilling, right? It starts with that off, so like I mentioned earlier, what do you do without your OP hero? Where does that leave everyone? That introduces a level of chaos into a story that we previously had a bit of a fall net, right? A fall net in that Gojo can just take care of everything. We've established that. So when you fresh come off that flashback of all his sorcerer friends saying, well, why not we just leave it to Gojo? And then you seal him? Now all bets are off. And that's what I love about this arc. I know other people can do analysis on it, but what I love about this arc myself, the uncertainty is so strong. I don't know who's going to live through this arc. We don't know who's going to survive. We don't know what's going to happen to Itadori. We don't know what's going to happen to Nobara. Please save her. Nobara, we don't know what's going to happen to her. We don't know what's going to happen with Fushiguro. We don't know what's going to happen with Gojo. When all bets are off like this, it just hits different. I wish I was more poetic with this to sell it. But I can't understate how much this manga has been building to this moment because of its OP hero. Itadori is great, and the story does center on him, and he has great. Let's get to the emotional beats in a second. But when a story builds up an OP hero so much, and then you take that away, it's almost like you took not the wind out of the sails, you took the boat away. You poked holes in the boat of the story, so now we're thinking, wait a minute, not in a bad way. We poked holes in the characters' belief in themselves and what can happen, and as readers, now we're wondering what can happen. And that's the best way to write a serious arc, an arc that contains the most weight. Because even as a shonen readers, we know generally the good guys win. Most of the time, almost all the time, the good guys win. But this manga feels different. I think that's what the Shibuya arc is showing us. Is that one, no one makes it out unscathed. It's not. This isn't Fantasyland. Even for shonen manga standards, this isn't Fantasyland. You don't just come out clean or with a minor injury, right? People die. People get injured, people get maimed, people get changed. And I think that's what has everybody so captivated with this manga. The anime, it needs to, I think, get to this point. But with this manga specifically, I think it's one of the first manga in my recent memory, where I don't know if the good guys are going to win. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Because we're talking about that, the school has put out a hit on our main character. So now are we just, is it him against the world? Or we understand the reasons, right? We just saw Sukuna do devastation and take over his body with, now he has what? I think, I don't know how many fingers he has up to this point, over 10, 15 maybe? We understand the reasoning, so now we don't know if it's just a one versus all. Are the students going to help him? Is it just going to be his friend, Toto? Are the three, Team 7, I'll call them Team 7, going to stick together? Is it just them against the world? There's such a level of uncertainty that keeps us around, that makes me want to read every chapter this manga can put out, because I want to know what happens next, because I don't know. And that's the beauty of this manga. I don't know if the good guys are going to win. I don't know if the bad guys are going to win. I don't even know who the bad guys are half the time. It seems like it flip-flops. We know bad guys, but the antagonists change so much, the heroes change so much, and guys, I can't wait to keep covering this series. And I just wanted to get my thoughts out on this manga right now, because I'm so glad I caught up. I'm so glad I picked it back up after hearing the hype, because I was kind of like, okay, it's getting hype. I remember that manga. It's standard. Fights are okay. Cool animation style, but it's not for me. But I was like, no, I keep hearing the Shibuya arc. Not the anime, I keep hearing the Shibuya arc. And I'm so glad I picked it up, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you agree that this manga has staying power and that it's not something really seen before. And you're trying to sell somebody on this manga, let's put it that way. It's hard to do a payoff like this. And we're not even done yet. We're not even at the finish line. So I hope to see this train keep on going, because we're in for a hell of a ride, if we're not already off the rails already. So, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like Jujutsu Kaisen content. I'll be covering it weekly from now on. Thank you, guys. Later.